The new hits from Theros and M14 to try and keep the dream alive, as it were. The big names are Elvish Mystic, Sylvan Caryatid, Holocranos World Eater, and Stormbreath Dragon. Each of those slotting in for lost causes from previous blocks, basically.
Andrew Morrow opens up with a Temple of Silence. He's playing black-white. It's a mid-range deck, a mid-range control deck. And the thing about the Domri Naya deck from Eric English, I know I've worked on some Naya so far, and I have not been able to make the mana make me happy yet. So we'll see if Eric has cracked the code. Maybe he has found the way to make it work. Andrew Morrow, he is playing a lot of coming to play tap lands, 4 Temple, 4 Orzhov Guildgate, and then after that, the conditionally tapped Godless Shrine.
Yeah, he's playing basically as many of those as he can get his hands on, which is interesting considering one of the benefits of the 2-color mana base is, having significantly less stress in the first place.
Sin Collector, what you got in there? Show me your sins.
Does he get anything? Because there aren't very many in Eric's deck list.
Whiff.
Yeah, it looked like a blank, but he has Elvish Mystic, Scavenging Ooze, Lockstone Smiter, Stomping Ground, and a Domri Raid and a Stormbreath Dragon. So pretty much the nut. This hand is going to curve out pretty strong. He's got a lot of top end. He's got a long game threat in Domri. He's got durable creatures. You really can't ask for too much more.
We have to see if Andrew has something to do to hold all of that off. I know you said maybe his mana, the benefits of 2 colors is not having to go that deep in there. And I have to say I agree with you. I think his mana might be too good.
Mm-hmm. You spoke about the weak mana base in Domri Naya, and I got to be honest, even back in the day, I wasn't that happy with Domri Naya's mana base. It never hit that point where I was like, yeah, this is sweet. I lost plenty of games to not being able to hit red on turn 3 or having my forest when I needed to play Boros Reckon or things like that. So it's just a tough spot to be in.
Stomping Ground into Domri. He gets a peek. Gets to check what's on top. Leave it there. You mentioned before we started being on camera, the Andrews deck has a lot of different removal. That's certainly the case. He's got access to Farika's Cure, Doomblade, and Devour Flesh.
Yeah, one of the things I don't like about his removal suite is it's pretty weak against Domri Naya, mostly because of the presence of Voice of Resurgence and then just larger creatures. Farika's Cure can kill very, very few things at any kind of value against Eric, and Devour Flesh is obviously pretty mediocre if your opponent just has a Voice of Resurgence in play in general. Even if you're doing it on your turn, they're obviously still getting a token. It's not where you want to be. I like Eric's aggression on the previous turn where he decided to go ahead and let this Domri just tick up once, get in his 2 damage with Voice Resurgence rather than trying to defend it from Sin Collector. And we see now he just immediately trades it off, gets that creature off the board. He wants to try and race down a Desecration Demon.
I mean, I think he's just saying to himself, this Domri's going to be gone. Let's not pretend it's going to stick around.
Mm-hmm.
Desecration Demon, no slouch. 6/6 flyer. And Eric English has taken some pain from his land, so it's a 3-turn clock right now, presuming that Eric doesn't sacrifice any creatures to hold it back.
Yeah, I think based on that Domri trade in for Sin Collector, Eric is likely planning to tap it down maybe with Voice of Resurgence to get the token that he can attack with on his own turn. But with so much thought going on here, it's likely that one player is considering what to do. I'm not sure which of them it is. It looks like Eric is in fact considering whether to sacrifice with the trigger on. And he says nope, and Andrew swings in for 6.
Now Andrew, untapped entirely, can do any number of sick plays.
Yeah.
That's one of them, and Eric's like, oh, that sucks for me.
Another Desecration Demon is tough, but he does have the potential to find a Selesnya Charm here. Doesn't look like he did, so now he's got a few options. He can get 2 for 1 via the use of Mizium Mortars, if he has one of those. Don't think we do. So looks like he's just going to have to play more guys and hope to get an opening.
Eric English going over the options. He has a land in the hand. I think it is one of the Return to Ravnica or perhaps Ravnica dual lands.
I think this turn he's going to be stuck just dropping Scavenging Ooze, Elvish Mystic. He can throw away his voice to get in an attack for 4. I don't know if that's what he wants to do, though.
Temple of...
Is this Abandon? Is that the green-red one?
I believe that's the correct name.
Yep.
Temple of Abandon.
Uses the scry and is now debating what to do. There's also the option of not playing the Mystic in order to grow up the Scavenging Ooze a little bit, but he's going to go with the Domri.
Domri, wow.
+1s, finds a creature.
Passes the turn.
Now this will at least buy him a little life, perhaps, if Andrew gets enticed into swinging at Domri instead of Eric. Eric's clearly going to have to tap down one of those demons, otherwise Andrew will simply attack him for lethal.
He's like, does it tap them both? No.
Yeah, that would be fortunate. Not how it works out. So Eric's going to tap one of them with his Voice of Resurgence token. Or with his voice, I should say, getting a token. And now...
and the other.
He's going to tap the other one as well, using the token. Okay, interesting play.
Fair enough.
Seems like he's trying to set up a fight plus something, perhaps.
Hero's downfall. He's like, I don't know what you're planning, but I don't want it to happen.
Yeah. He wants no part of whatever's going to go on there.
Ooh, was that a Selesnya Charm?
It was. Eric finds a Selesnya Charm on top of his deck. That Domri +1 did some work this turn, and now he's in significantly better shape. He doesn't really have to worry about dying. Even an Obsidat is not actually going to get him for lethal. It'll leave him at 1.
Eric English, a Selesnya Charm in hand can exile one of the demons. And there's a Scavenging Ooze.
He's going to go ahead and pass turn, and we'll see what Andrew actually does here. I imagine Eric's not going to sacrifice for either demon here. He could try. I think it's just fine to go to 3. It's not that much different from 10, really. Yep.
Get out of here.
Eric, content to take the 7, exiles the other demon.
I think I see a Blind Obedience, a Devour Flesh, and a Doomblade in Andrew Morrow's hand.
That Blind Obedience is a 1 of in Andrew Morrow's deck list, but it's a particularly lethal one here, as it's one of the few cards that Andrew can use to actually threaten lethal damage outside of the combat step.
I think what we're going to see here from Andrew is he's just going to plan on trying to kill all of the creatures Eric drops down, so that there's nothing that can be done to stop that demon.
That's a tough line to take against a deck like Domri Naya. It has so many creatures. He already knows Eric has at least 1 Elvish Mystic in his hand via the Domri reveal, so that's 1 cheap creature he can throw away to the Desecration Demon already. With 2 on the board, it's going to be difficult to outrace Eric playing 2 creatures a turn. He can actually very easily, get that order done.
I think I see 2 Devour Flesh.
Devour Flesh is also not an ideal racing tool in this situation. He might actually bump Eric back above 7, in which case he can take another hit from the demon.
He takes it.
Interesting that he takes that hit. Now he's kind of falling behind on tempo. That Blind Obedience would shut off Eric's ability to dragon him next turn, but as is, he's not really in a spot.
He's going to respond to that Mystic, it looks like.
And now he's going to Devour Flesh, which is going to seem pretty awkward, obviously, as he took the damage from these creatures first.
Nah.
Yeah, I think Andrew's saying, I don't know why I took this damage. I should have just Devour Fleshed in combat. Because clearly, he knew the Mystic was there. He knew he was going to have to play the Devour Flesh in order to get a better creature anyway.
I mean, it's definitely a thing that is going to have cost him at least 2 life.
Eric appears to be debating gaining some life with the Scavenging Ooze before he sacrifices it.
And that would be double duty on the life gain. 1 for the activation and 1 for the Devour Flesh. But he says no.
Yeah, I think he's going to decline so that he can cast his other Mystic and another Scavenging Ooze. Just get as many creatures into play as possible. And the second Devour Flesh, Eric's going to gain 4. He goes to 7. He may be wishing that he'd use that Ooze now.
Yeah, now that's 6 life. He's above the realm of the demon to be able to finish.
Yeah, he no longer has to sacrifice a creature. He can just take the hit.
Andrew Morrow could have been at 14. In with the demon.
And Eric is going to shrug and take 7 here, go back to basically the same life total as he was at before. And now if I'm Andrew, I feel like I have to play Blind Obedience, just to shut down the Hasty Dragon. It looks like he's going to rely on the Hero's Downfall instead. The thing is, both do the same job, basically, except that he'll lose a little bit of tempo. But I think we were already willing to give that up.
Hero's Downfall. And it gets gobbled up by the Scavenging Ooze.
Eric English keeping the Mystic out of combat because obviously you can use it to activate Scavenging Ooze, getting himself a little bigger creature and a little more life. Same amount of damage.
Eric English at 4 life. Andrew Morrow at 4 life. He wishes he was at 10, though.
Yeah, if he had 2 removal spells right here, he would actually be able to crack through for lethal, but it doesn't look like he's got that.
He's got 1 at least.
Yeah, he has 1, so he can stave off his own death. So he's going to attack first. Eric will tap it down. And plays Shockland tapped and passes. Now we're in this awkward spot where you actually are dead to a dragon, no matter what we do, but Eric doesn't have one. He just Heroes Downfalls the Ooze.
Eric English needs some creatures. Here they are, 3 creatures.
That's 3. Those Sylvan Caryatids will go down in a hurry, I'm pretty sure. He's just going to chuck one of those to the demon each turn while he hopes to peel a 4/4 or better creature to threaten Andrew with lethal.
Blind Obedience.
It shuts out Eric's best outs, which were all named Stormbreath Dragon.
And he goes looking at the bones, and he does activate the Extort. So it's only a loss of 1 life. Puts
Still,
one on top, 1 on bottom.
That gives Eric the additional out of Selesnya Charm now to attack for lethal with his Elvish Mystic. Doesn't find it. Finds a temple. Don't see what that card is, but it goes to the bottom of the deck.
In for 1.
In for 1. Getting down to the wire here.
Morrow. He's going to eat up another Sylvan Caryatid, probably. Boom.
Does he have... Oh, it looks like he has another Demon and a Sin Collector. That should be enough creatures to put this one in his favor. He can actually pretty much cast whichever one he wants and gain a life. He's going to go with the Demon.
For 1.
Gain a life.
Okay, what can Eric English draw? I don't see anything, actually.
I don't see anything anymore. I think we're done. We're very close. Chandra's 1 damage short. Chandra to make the demon unable to block and ping Andrew, and then let the Elvish Mystics get in for 1 more.
It was close. It was close.
It was real tight. Wouldn't have been nearly as tight if we Devour Fleshed before that attack went through. I think Andrew's saying that to himself right now. Even kind of looks like the gist of it. You know, he's just in this spot where he knows this is what he's going to do, and decided to, perhaps hope that Eric got greedy and went it with some Gore-Clan Rampagers or something, but those aren't actually even in Eric's deck list.
So things that I see in Eric English's sideboard, Destructive Revelry, the new Naturalize of sorts, not something I see particularly for this matchup. Rurik Thar, a card that could come in for this matchup, even though it is quite expensive. Mizium Mortars, it's worth potentially thinking about. It could kill a Blood Baron. Blood Baron is a very hard card to deal with. The black-white mid-range control deck like this, I would expect to see some number of Blood Barons.
Sure.
Flames the Firebrand, no thanks. Unflinching Courage, I wouldn't want to bring it in against so much removal, no thanks. And 1, Assemble the Legion, you could say yes sir for me on that one, especially against a deck that clearly has Devour Fleshes in multiple.
Yeah, Assemble the Legion is probably the best card he could bring in this matchup. It shuts down Desecration Demon, it makes Devour Flesh into basically a blank, and it's also just a game-ending threat. It'll pretty easily kill the opponent if you give it just 3 or 4 turns with the opponent not pressuring you. And as we saw, Andrew actually will struggle to pressure you. He has those Desecration Demons, and that's about it. Moving to his sideboard, he's got a variety of options. He's got 3 Glare of Heresy. I imagine he'll be bringing those in. They're significantly better than some of his other options. He might even be boarding out those Devour Fleshes in order to gain access to them, although I can understand the temptation of wanting some instant speed removal. I would board out the Pharika's Cures before I boarded out the Devour Fleshes. I've talked a little smack on Devour Flesh, but it's still a little better than Vicious Hunger in the matchup. Beyond that, he has access to Yoke Docs, which is not really as good against the Naya deck as it is against, say, the Mono Red deck. The Naya deck can go over it with much larger creatures. Loxton Smiter and Scavenging Ooze can just run over it, and once you're Elvish Mysticking into Polo Kranos and Stormbreath Dragon, the Yoke Docs is just a chumper at that point. Outside of that, he also has access to some interesting choices, like 2 Ratchet Bombs. He can board in a 3rd Obzdad if he feels like he needs it. He has a 2nd Whip of Erebos in his sideboard. And these are all kind of just how he's planning to approach the matchup. For example, if you're boarding one plan versus the other, Whip could go from being an all-star to being, totally dead. So I'll be kind of interested to see what his main deck actually looks like in this game.
Now, one of the things that I look at with Andrew Morrow's deck, looking at the 3 Blood Barons, Blood Baron in this matchup it is a really, really great card. I mean, the Pelakronos can stop it, and it gets traded with the Stormbreath Dragon. But other than that, that's basically all that is standing in the way of the Blood Baron.
Yeah, Blood Baron's definitely a big player. The only real dodge it has to make is keeping out of those Mizium Mortars. That can obviously be very problematic. And at the same time, it is raceable, as horrifying as that sounds. When you have access to threats like 3-mana 4/4s and 5-mana 4/4 flyers, it's actually not that crazy for the Blood Baron to be in a spot where even attacking for 4 and gaining 4 is actually not winning the race.
I mean, one of the problems that all of the decks that we saw playing against the green deck the mono green deck had to worry about, is the creatures were simply so large.
Yep.
I mean, it's one of the problems any deck that has life gain has, is that you usually have a toss-up for your life gain. Your life gain is usually tied to some cost in mana or color or some such, something to make it so that it just doesn't get too overwhelming. That's how Wizards likes to design cards. They don't want to just immediately design the card that nullifies all of the cards, at least not usually. And so here we have this card, very, very good card, but the 2-color requirements, that's probably not going to be an issue for Andrew, who has got such good mana, but 5 mana is very expensive.
Yeah, that's also true. Eric can definitely get in underneath a Blood Baron and just have a massive board presence. This isn't M14 with Innistrad standard. We don't have Mutilates. We actually just have to answer all these creatures. You can't just let them hit you all the time.
Temple of Abandon, and he bottoms it. I think the Guildgate, he's running 4. I would probably only run 1.
Ooh, Eric off to a fast start. 2 Elvish Mystics threatening the potential for a turn 3 Stormbreath Dragon.
And there we have a Godless Shrine.
Oh.
Is it there?
Oh, it's there.
Yeah.
It's there. Stormbreath Dragon, much like his Thundermaw Hellkite brethren, does not enter the battlefield untapped. He comes down horizontal.
Okay, what you got, Andrew?
And now we see one of the dilemmas Andrew can frequently face. He's got that Glare of Heresy in his hand. That doesn't kill any of these creatures. It doesn't handle these particular threats. It's one of the strengths of the Domri Naya deck. It has a pretty diverse range of very powerful creatures. In the games where Glare of Heresy would be incredible, there are games where it won't do anything.
He goes Read the Bones, draw 2. Looks like he's got 8 cards in his hand now. At a pretty low life total, taking at least 6. He's going to be going down to either 10 or 8. Depending, because those Mystics can be used for mana still. Another Dragon. I wouldn't be surprised to see 9 damage coming at Andrew.
Yep.
Boom, take 9.
Indeed it does. That'll put Andrew to 5 and in deep trouble. He bottomed 2 with that Read the Bones in order to find an answer to the Dragon, and he did find one. He found a Doomblade. Now he needs 2 Doomblades. He doesn't have them.
Boom, that was quick. Now, one of the things I was talking about, if you've been reading my articles for the last couple of weeks, I've talked about black-white mid-range in different versions a couple different times. Read the Bones is a card that I started out with playing, and in the end, I removed it. I definitely took it out of there. And I know one of my friends who was doing some Pro Tour testing, he had Read the Bones, one of his decks. He removed it. And a part of the issue is, for these non-blue based decks, the card draw, the cost in mana and life, the combination of the two is just too much for these non-blue decks.
It does come at a very odd spot in the curve, as turn 3 I feel like is when you really want to start doing things and keeping up with your opponent. There are a lot of things they can threaten, like between Ashiok and Domri Raid. There are planeswalkers you might have to handle very quickly that come down on turn 3. All these aggro decks, like that's where all of their best 3-drops are. Boros Reckoner, Loxodon Smiter, these are the real men. And finding time to actually read some bones in a game, it can be tricky at 3 mana. I remember I had some copies of it in the pre-release, and I had it in my sealed deck, and I expected it to be a really, really strong card, but even in the tempo of that format, I found myself having to make room in my game plan to play it. I didn't just get to free roll my pseudo divination.
Right, and I mean, the 2 decks that I view as the masters of this universe are red aggro and blue-white control, or blue-white variants.
Sure. Hallowed Fountain decks.
Yeah, Hallowed Fountain decks, sure. And I think that Read the Bones matches up poorly against both. Because you not putting a threat on the table on turn 3, sure, you're getting extra cards, but that's just more time for them to be having a Sphinx Revelation actually work. And I just don't think you can afford to do that. And against red, I certainly wouldn't want to Read the Bones.
Against red, you basically just... you can't afford to spend 3 mana playing the card unless you're already winning the game. And I agree with you against the Hallowed Fountain decks in that if you're not doing something better than Sphinx's Revelationing, you can't really afford to spend time on Read the Bones, because that's all it does. It's a card that digs you to the best thing you could be doing. So if the best thing you could be doing is still not good enough to beat a Sphinx's Revelation, then you really have to lean on tempo instead of card quality, right? So I don't think we have anything that goes over the top of Sphinx's Revelation right now. I'm not saying there isn't something, like maybe someone will find some synergy. I think somewhere black is like probably the color that can do it, right? You've got things like Whip and Obsidat that can really, set up some pretty devastating board states, but at the same time, you actually have to get there. You have to get through the wall of counter magic. You have to present a significant amount of threats, and I don't know if you can cobble it all together every time,
I'm right there with you. And, I think there are enough cards that I would want to play over it that, I just don't think it's the way to go.
I know that Jerry recently posted a black-red mid-range deck that he's actually pretty interested in, and I kind of like that deck's approach to those matchups. It has those cards like Stormbreath Dragon. It can be a little more aggressive. It's got Chandra to kind of fuel things going along, and that form of pressure, that I can kind of get behind. But even then, it is totally beatable. If they just like Sphere into like counterspelling your dragon into whatever, you're in these really awkward spots where when you don't curve out, they assume a gigantic lead because Sphinx's Revelation will pull them ahead no matter what's going on.
Eric English pulling up a new hand.
Looks good, yep.
Eric hasn't seemed to have the mana problems that I've usually been associating with this archetype. Andrew starts out, Temple of Silence, put that card on the bottom.
Looks like a Temple of Abandon's coming down for Eric. Nope, Stomping Ground. Looks like Stomping Ground, Sacred Foundry, and I think a Forest in his hand.
Swamp into Blind Obedience. I love this card.
Yep.
It is one of those cards that I only want one of ever, but I really think this is a good one. I played this in the main deck of my Esper deck that I had some success with last season, and it's a good one.
Yeah, Andrew's one of Blind Obedience is going to do some serious work in this game as Eric, has those Stormbreath Dragons. And I remember watching Brad and Jerry doing some testing with Stormbreath Dragon against Blind Obedience, and the matchup really hinged on whether that enchantment was in play or not.
Blind Obedience also, is that another whiff with a Sin Collector?
Yep, 2 Stormbreath Dragon and 3 Shocklands, 2 Foundry and a Stomping Ground.
The Blind Obedience also would happen to be a really solid card should a Assemble the Legion come into play. And it doesn't stop Assemble the Legion from being, good, but it does stop it from being obscene.
Yeah, it slows things down a little, buys you some time. The problem is the only ways you're really beating those tokens are Blood Barons, right? So like, if you have a Blood Baron and a Blind Obedience, I think you can actually beat an Assembled Legion. If you only have one of those things, you're probably still not winning.
Sin Collector again, a card that I'm shocked to see is still in Andrew's deck.
I think Andrew's got the real fear of Selesnya Charm and Mizium Mortars, He really wants those demons and Blood Barons to survive.
There's the Assemble coming down next turn. Well, maybe the Stormbreath will come down. I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah, Andrew does have a Glare of Heresy in his hand, so he actually has a solution to Assemble the Legion already available.
Assemble the Legion, not tapped.
Yeah, not tapped, but likely soon to be exiled.
And he's going to extort Eric English. Mm-hmm. 1 life, drained away, in for 4 more.
He drains and attacks for 4. I think he might have drawn a Desecration Demon this turn, and I think I would have preferred to play the Gigantic Dude. And let him have 1 token. It's not that big a deal, for the sake of mana efficiency. Plus 6/6 flyers.
We're going to see probably a big dragon.
Yeah, it's unlikely that Eric has any other play to make here.
It's hasty, but the thing about that big dragon is it doesn't get to attack. Blind Obedience doing the job it's supposed to. Andrew Morrow, despite having this double Sin Collector kind of mediocrity in this game, I think he looks like he's in really good shape right now.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Leaves it open. He's got a Selesnya Charm.
And a land.
Block.
That's
goes to 8.
Interesting choice by Eric. I guess he figured he didn't want to go to 6.
And an Extort knocks Eric to 7. We're going to probably see a Selesnya Charm. There it is. Untap.
Draws a Scavenging Ooze. Well,
an Ooze is not terrible. It's not very good right now. I don't believe there are any creatures in any graveyards. The Selesnya Charm does exile.
Yeah, once he gets one creature in the bin, though, he can actually get to a 3/3 and kind of end this madness that Sin Collector is wreaking upon him.
Stormbreath Dragon. It's a big guy. I mean, he's at a position, though, where it might just have to sit back. Just for one turn. Smiter into, there it is, the Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah, I agree with sitting back here on the Stormbreath Dragon. This is going to go ahead and force Andrew to do it, yeah.
Wow, he is Doomblading the Scavenging Ooze.
Doomblading the Ooze.
And then afterwards. Okay, there we go. And is that death? I think he just knocked Eric down to...
Dead to a spell.
Dead to a spell. Block, go to 1. A spell? Oh, no spell.
No spell. Without a way to gain life, Eric is racing a pretty tight margin against the top of Andrew's deck.
Dragon and Mystic and go. No spell, please. No spell!
Wow.
Is there... I mean, maybe Eric has some sort of wildness like Unflinching Courage. I wouldn't want it in this matchup, but you never know. I mean, maybe he brought it in.
If he just hits another Scavenging Ooze, he's back up to 3 and in not unreasonable shape, you know? And Eric seizes.
Monstrous!
Yeah, he's just going for it. And
how many cards you got?
Andrew did hold a land on a turn when any spell would kill Eric. That was kind of a pointless hold.
Boom. Obviously,
here he now draws a spell, but you know that's kind of it's an autopilot play, right? When you draw a land and have nothing else in hand. But in that situation, anything that wasn't a land just kills Eric outright, and not playing the land actually is going to deal you a point if you ever monsters a Stormbreath there. And so it's kind of like it should be the automatic play to actually just drop the land. It's not going to affect anything in the game.
That's one of those fun things that there's usually a right play so often. You can train yourself out of making the right play in this narrow situation.
Yeah,
you know, it's not a situation you're going to have happen very often. But, you know, you can still, I think, get the lesson from this moment if you're a spectator at home that one of the things you need to do is, you know, reevaluate the board every once in a while and don't just assume that everything is the same as it was the last turn.
I know